All right, let's go get them. Tennessee, Rocky Top. Tennessee is back, baby. They beat Florida, beat Bama and Saban, stomped on Clemson in the Orange Bowl in the Battle of the Orange. Burnt orange versus, actual orange, and they were the true oranges. So, I mean, they not emotional oranges, but real oranges. So, I mean, it's all good. It's all love and Rocky Top. So let's go ahead and get to optimism. Number one reason for optimism. Milton. I think he's actually a better quarterback than Herndon. Um, he's been compared a lot to Anthony Richardson of Florida. I don't think that Anthony Richardson ever played a game that was as good of a game that Milton played versus Clemson. He was throwing the ball all over the place. This kid has a cannon arm, beautiful throws. I think he runs a 4.5. I think he's a bit taller than Richardson. This kid is a freak. He's a monster. Herndon Hooker had a great season last year, but I think he struggled in some games, and particularly the Georgia game. He looked like a deer in headlights. If Milton isn't put in that same position, I think he actually flourishes more. Talking about more about that Clemson game and the Battle of the Oranges, where they were the true oranges. Their receiving core, they lost a lot of guys, obviously, to the draft, in particular, Jalen Hyatt of Alabama fame. But Squirrel, someone named Squirrel. Someone named their child Squirrel. I don't know if this is a nickname, but I see it on the thing Squirrel, so it must be his name. Squirrel had a major monster game in that game. The receiver Keaton, McCoy, they all got reps with Milton, so you have to feel good about that as well. Their running back core is coming back, and there's a lot to love what's going on with Tennessee. If you look at their reasons for concern, I think the number one would be pass rush. They fixed the interior of the line. They added a bunch of 300 powders to stop teams from being able to run the ball down their throats, kind of what happened in the Georgia game. But the pass rush is not there. In the SEC, the quarterback play is a little bit in flux, so they might be able to get away with it. But the pass rush is concerning. And also that loss to South Carolina, 63-38. That's one of them games where you don't forget that game too easily. It's not one of that you, hey, games happen and you move on. They beat them down right in the middle of Tennessee still being in the hunt for the college football playoffs when their only loss was to Georgia at the time. So if you look at their schedule, they have an easy first three games. Then they play a sneaky University of Texas San Antonio team. The Roadrunners, they can score a lot of points. I love the quarterback, 6-year senior because of COVID. That's going to be an interesting game. That's going to be a tough game, sneaky game for them because they can score points. And like I mentioned, they don't have a pass rush. So is their defense going to hold up? And then they go through a murderer's row of games with Texas A&M, South Carolina, and then Alabama. Call me crazy, but I think the more potent game, the game that might actually give them the most trouble would be Texas A&M. I think they played better towards the end of the year. South Carolina, I think they're going to be fired up for that rematch. But Spencer Rattler looks like he's returning to the form that saw him as a potential number one overall pick, that saw him as a Heisman favorite coming into a season 2 years ago. And then you have Alabama. I think actually Alabama's on a down year. They're still trying to figure out their quarterback situation. So I don't think they're going to be as good on offense. And they lost Anderson. They have a couple guys, Dallas Turner, but I just don't think this is the Alabama teams of old. So I actually think the Texas A&M game and the South Carolina game might actually be more of an issue for them. And then they play Georgia. Georgia that didn't dominate them score wise, but it felt like more when you actually watch the game. So we'll see how they handle that game. That's another team with quarterback issues that are trying to be solved, but those issues will be solved by the time that they play that game. So we'll definitely see what Georgia has in store at full bear at that time. So when we go to predictions, I'm just going to say I've said a lot of positive things about Tennessee, and another positive thing which I failed to mention is they have a five-star kid that they brought in, Nico, that if Milton does struggle, can come in and mop up duty and really shine. But I don't think it's going to be Tennessee's year, to tell you the truth. I think it's unfortunate, the SEC is getting rid of divisions, And it just so happens the year that is the very last of divisions, they get so many big dogs from the other side, from the west of SEC. So I'm going to go ahead and say that they lose probably 2 games. I think they're probably going to lose to Georgia again. And then I think that Texas A&M, South Carolina, Alabama murderers row. I think they probably lose at least one of those games. If they lose two, lose to Georgia, they don't make the SEC championship game. They don't make the playoffs. So, this is one of the teams that are a contender that I think a lot of people are being very optimistic of last year, very optimistic of the beatdown that they put on Clemson at the end of the year. But I don't think that they have the complete team to contend this year. Hopefully they can build things up. But hey, if they find a pass rusher and one guy emerges, then they could definitely be in the conversation. But the lack of pass rush, I think, is going to make it hard for them to go through the season with one loss or unscathed, which they're probably going to need to make the college football playoffs. All right, let me know what you think. Leave me a comment, subscribe, and as always, the game is the game.